Yes, from Noah. I got a question for you, gentlemen, about team building philosophy. There's been some talk on the pod lately about the idea that you save up chips, and when there's a championship window, you need to cash in those chips and max out your chances of winning. Do you see this philosophy being at odds with the idea that you try to put yourself in a position to always compete? I'm thinking about the Spurs dynasty and how they never seem to make all-in moves. I think this applies to the Heat too. As much as they're always waiting to pounce on the right situation, it's still almost always a long-term play. I'm concerned that underpinning basically every move the team has made in recent history is the idea that our championship window is absolutely correlated to us having Ben and Joe, and when they're gone, we'll have to endure another period of extended mediocrity. We never reached the point with Hinkie where we were close enough to go all in, but I always assumed he was trying to create sustainable greatness. Is that idea unrealistic in the modern NBA? I thought it was an interesting question because that was what I believed the Hinkie thing to be, is this self-sustaining thing that you're always great. And that is a little bit at odds with the Morey thing of if you have even a 10% chance of winning a championship, you put all your chips in the middle. What do you think?
I think that after this many years of Daryl having James Harden and not winning a championship or even getting to a championship with James Harden, I think makes him consider how like precious those opportunities are that have always kind of eluded him. And so I think, like you mentioned the Spurs, like the Spurs were obviously, you know, the preeminent franchise for decades. If Tim Duncan gets hurt in any of those times, like it's over. So like his fantastic health kept them afloat so they could be really good for a long time and not bottom out or whatever. They're also incredibly well coached and like ahead of the curve in so many areas and stuff. But like, you can't assume that your best player and defensive anchor is going to be healthy for 15 years, you know, especially not Ben and Joel, who we've already sort of listed their injuries and problem areas. So in my mind, it is that the NBA has gotten smarter over the last 10 years. And so I think teams are, you don't just get to do the same thing over and over again. Teams are like finding you out and scheming against you, whether that's on the court or just like in terms of like transactions and stuff. So I think that as much as being good always and then having a couple seasons where it all just kind of works out, I think that that's ideal for sure. And if you have, as long as we have Ben and Joel, we'll be that for as long as they're around and playing at this level. I do think that the NBA, like especially adding on to, you know, players getting dissatisfied and wanting to leave, if you're not actually getting there and showing these players that you're trying to win at all costs right now, you know what I mean? You're seeing it with Giannis, like they had to trade so much just to get Drew so they could be like, hey, see, we care. I think that it is a little bit of a different era of like, even the Warriors were like, they weren't, you know, they were good for they were elite for 4 years, and then guys get hurt and you move on. And like, it's amazing how quickly it can end. And so I think I'm not saying you trade everything and go all in so that you become the, you know, Cavs from a couple years ago once LeBron left, and have absolutely nothing to build around. I think that there's something short of that can still set you up for like possible future success. But I do think that when there's an opportunity and you see the right move to make that could actually get you there, I do think you got to hit. I mean, Daryl's been too close for too long to not get it, and the Sixers now have been somewhat close for too long to not make that happen.
Well, I mean, they haven't been out of the second round
for sure, but they've been, you know, in the conversation and
right.
being like, if they, I'm not saying that they were like knocking on the door or something, but they're at least been in the conversation for long enough with two guys that are, you know, not the healthiest players to not do it.
I think there's levels to it, right? You talked about the Cavs knowing that, hey, this is like, here's LeBron, the best player in the league. if we do not optimize every year, and we don't know how long he's going to be here, we're fucking up. Or even Morey, in the last few years he was in Houston, he was like, I have Harden here. This definitely puts me in the talk for a championship. You know, I have a 10% chance every time Harden steps on the floor of winning a championship. I got to go all in. And I just think there's different. And, you know, the NBA is not only smarter right now, it's just more chaotic. You know, counting on sustained success. By the way, not only was Tim Duncan great, all those things, he was never going to leave. Mm-hmm. You knew he was never going to leave. I don't think that exists anywhere at this point. You can never rely on that.